Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the weekly Parashahcast, the weekly Torah portion podcast where I read the weekly Torah portion, then provide my own interpretation of events. This week's episode is a holiday special, the Torah reading for Yom Kippur, the holiday known as the Day of Atonement. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump through. It lands on Shabbat this year, the 10th of Tishrei, 5785, October 12th, 2024. And if you're listening now, I hope it's not on the day you're not supposed to be on the internet and things like that. But nonetheless, I hope it is educational. We'll be starting with Leviticus chapter 16, also covering some things from Numbers. So let's jump on in. As always, I'd like to remind everybody I'm not a professional Torah scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the Torah. You could follow along in English on Chabad.org. First portion, Vayikra chapter 16, verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's two sons, when they drew near before the Lord, and they died. And the Lord said to Moses, Speak to your brother Aaron, that he should not come at all times into the holy within the dividing curtain, in front of the cover that is upon the ark, so that he should not die. For I appear over the ark cover in a cloud. With this shall Aaron enter the holy, with a young bull for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering. End of the first portion. So real quick summary. This is right after the death of Nadab and Abihu, the two sons of Aaron, who were the successors, really. They were supposed to be the next two in line to become the high priest, and they made a fire offering to the Lord that he did not order. It was called an alien fire, and it caused them to be consumed by the Lord. So, with this, Moses is being told, warn your brother, don't walk in without these very specific conditions into the Holy of Holies, or else you may die. And the warning is because that God will be there with a cloud, right? So the likeness, the presence of God is fatal to those who are not supposed to gaze upon it. So, with that being said, we jump in to the second portion, remembering that he must bring a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Second portion, chapter 16 of Vayikra, Leviticus, verse 4. He shall wear a holy linen shirt, and linen pants shall be upon his flesh. And he shall gird himself with a linen sash, and wear a linen cap. These are holy garments. And therefore he shall immerse himself in water, and don them. And from the community of the children of Israel he shall take 2 he-goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. And Aaron shall bring his sin offering bull, and initiate atonement for himself and for his household. Alright, that's the end of the second portion. So, this is the significance here. Aaron is to wear very specific holy garments, to be immersed in water, so this is a ritual bath purifying him, and then he can put on the holy garments, and then from the community he shall take 2 he-goats and 1 ram as a burnt offering, so the sin offering and the burnt offering. He'll bring his sin offering bull and initiate atonement for himself and for his household. So the bull, as we mentioned before, it's for himself and for, his family. But what's the goat for? Let's find out. Third portion, Leviticus chapter 16, verse 7. And he shall take the 2 he-goats and place them before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And Aaron shall place lots upon the 2 he-goats, 1 lot for the Lord, and the other lot for Azazel. And Aaron shall bring the he-goat upon which the lot for the Lord came up, and designate it as a sin offering. And the he-goat upon which the lot for Azazel came up shall be placed while still alive before the Lord, to initiate atonement upon it, and to send it away to Azazel into the desert. And Aaron shall bring his sin-offering bull, and shall initiate atonement for himself and for his household, and he shall then slaughter his sin-offering bull. End of third portion. So, these 2 he-goats, what's going on here? This is the transference of sins, if you will. So what's going to happen is, he doesn't pick it, he draws lots. 1 sin will be for the Lord, 1 sin will be for Azazel. Azazel is an interesting word. The wilderness is generally the idea. You're offering it off to the wilderness, but if you wanted to give it some sort of personification, the wilderness itself as an entity is for where this goat is to be cast off. So you're casting the goat off to the wilderness. Still alive, not dead. And it will be placed while still alive before the Lord to initiate atonement upon it, right? So what's going to happen is, it's going to receive all of the sins of the people. This is, again, relevant to Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. And then he will slaughter the bull. On to the fourth portion, chapter 16, verse 12 of Leviticus. And he shall take a pan full of burning coals from upon the altar from before the Lord, and both hands full of the fine incense, and bring it within the dividing curtain. And he shall place the incense upon the fire before the Lord, so that the cloud of the incense shall envelop the ark cover that is over the tablets of testimony, so that he shall not die. And he shall take some of the bull's blood and sprinkle it with his index finger on top of the ark cover on the eastern side. And before the ark cover he shall sprinkle 7 times from the blood with his index finger. He shall then slaughter the he-goat of the people's sin offering, and bring its blood within the dividing curtain. And he shall do with its blood as he had done with the bull's blood. And he shall sprinkle it upon the ark cover and before the ark cover. And he shall effect atonement upon the holy from the defilements of the children of Israel, and from their rebellions and all their unintentional sins. He shall likewise to the tent of meeting, which dwells with them amidst their defilements. And no man shall be in the tent of meeting when he comes to effect atonement in the holy, until he comes out. And he shall effect atonement for himself, for his household, and for all the congregation of Israel. So, here we have the conclusion. First, he's going to go ahead and do this whole process involving lighting up his own offering. He does the incense offering, sprinkling the bull's blood over the ark. This is all very standard procedure. But now, after doing this, we can assume that Aaron has fully sanctified himself or purified himself enough to proceed to the next step. He will then slaughter the he-goat of the people's sin offering and bring its blood within, and repeat the process that he did with the bull's blood, sprinkling it around and so on. And then atonement from upon the holy from the defilements of the children. So in other words, this sacrifice will purify them of these sins. And then the tent of meeting also receives this. No one will walk in here until he comes out. All right, so this is how we keep it nice and pure. So now we've got this all taken care of. The sins, or this is how we purify the room. So why 2 goats? So the first goat, the purpose is to cleanse or purify the room, is how I interpret it. The second goat is where the defilement that still exists. So in other words, I'm going to clean all this, but you still have a bunch of sin all around you, so we're going to take all those sins and put them on the other goat. So let's go into the 5th portion and learn more. Chapter 16 of Leviticus, verse 18. And he shall then go out to the altar that is before the Lord and effect atonement upon it. He shall take some of the bull's blood and some of the he-goat's blood and place it on the horns of the altar around. And he shall sprinkle some of the blood upon it with his index finger 7 times, and he shall cleanse it and sanctify it of the defilements of the children of Israel. And he shall finish effecting atonement for the holy, the tent of meeting, and the altar, and then he shall bring the live he-goat. And Aaron shall lean both his hands forcefully upon the live he-goat's head, and confess upon it all the willful transgressions of the children of Israel, all their rebellions, and all their unintentional sins, and he shall place them on the he-goat's head, and send it off to the desert with a timely man. The he-goat shall thus carry upon itself all their sins to a precipitous land, and he shall send off the he-goat into the desert. And Aaron shall enter the tent of meeting, and remove the linen garments that he had worn when he came into the holy, and there he shall store them away. And he shall immerse his flesh in a holy place, and don his garments. He shall then go out and sacrifice his burnt offering and the people's burnt offering, and he shall effect atonement for himself and for the people. Okay, so here we now get to the crux of what's going on here as we conclude the 5th portion. So, step 1, purify the area with the blood offering, both himself and the people. Purified. So let's look at this room now. Let's call this room sanctified and clean. Let's call it like the operating room. This is the room where all the holiness is now in effect, thanks to the blood offering. While this is in effect, we can consider all the sins of Israel to be kind of like in stasis, or like as an energy that Aaron can now control and safely transfer onto this other goat. So by making the room super clean and holy, he has effectively made it possible to remove the sins and transfer them somewhere else. And so in doing so, because the room is perfect for the conditions, he transfers the sins to the goat, then sets it off into the wilderness where a timely man... So basically what's going to happen is some guy is going to follow this goat and knock it off a cliff. A precipitous land, right? So it's going to fall off the precipice. He's going to toss this poor goat into the abyss, basically, and in doing so, will cast away the sins of Israel with it. So it's a goat that takes the sins of the entire people, and in doing all this, being thrown to the wilderness, saves the people of their sins. Now on to the 6th portion, chapter 16 of Leviticus, verse 25. And he shall cause the fat of the sin offering to go up in smoke upon the altar. And the person who sent off the he-goat to Azazel, he shall immerse his garments and immerse his flesh in water. And after this he may come into the camp. And the sin offering bull and he-goat of the sin offering, both of which whose blood was brought to the effect atonement in the holy, he shall take outside the camp, and they shall burn in fire their hides, their flesh, and their waste. And the person who burns them shall immerse his garments and immerse his flesh in water. And after this he may come into the camp. And all this shall be as an eternal statute for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th of the month, you shall afflict yourselves, and you shall not do any work, neither the native nor the stranger who dwells among you. On this day he shall effect atonement for you to cleanse you. Before the Lord you shall be cleansed from all your sins. Alright, so that's the end of the 6th portion. So I'm going to combine a little bit from the previous portion. First, Aaron, after completing his process of transferring the sins to the goat, he now takes off those special garments after immersing himself and purifying himself, right? So he's going to take off those sacred garments, go into the water and purify, then come out and put on his normal clothes and do his normal burnt offering as he should, the atonement offering, right? Then the guy who comes back after pushing the goat into the abyss will come back and clean himself the same way. He will remove or immerse his garments and himself. So he's just going to jump all the way in the water. And after he's been purified, he can come in the camp too. So think of it like this. The guy just, by touching the goat or going with the goat, he may have gotten some nasty energy on him by proxy, or because of what he just did by coming into contact with the thing that was about to die, etc. Whatever the case may be, he's cleaning himself, and that's that. Now, following this, they will then have this all to continue with the burning of the flesh. So what happens is, not only does the guy who came out come back in and clean himself, but now the person who takes the flesh that Aaron provided outside of camp and burns all of that, and the waste and so on, that guy needs to bathe too. He needs to also immerse himself. So this is a process where they're making sure that they are cleaning themselves before returning in. And then after this, a reminder, this is an eternal statute. In the 7th month, on the 10th of the month, you shall afflict yourselves. You shall not do any work, neither the native nor the stranger who dwells among you, right? So that's what this is all about. It's a rest, Sabbath commandment day, and afflict yourselves. What is affliction? Well, it means don't have a good time, but really atone. And for this, God on this day will effect atonement for you to cleanse you. Before the Lord you shall be cleansed from all your sins. Now on to the 7th and final portion. Chapter 16 of Leviticus, verse 31. It is a Sabbath of rest for you, and you shall afflict yourselves. It is an eternal statute. And the Cohen who is anointed or who is invested to serve in his father's stead shall effect this atonement. And he shall don the linen garments, the holy garments, and he shall effect atonement upon the Holy of Holies. And he shall effect atonement upon the tent of meeting, and upon the altar, and he shall effect atonement upon the Kohanim, and upon all the people of the congregation. All this shall be as an eternal statute for you to effect atonement upon the children of Israel for all their sins once each year. And he did as the Lord had commanded Moses. All right, so that's the end of the 7th portion. So this is a note. It is a Sabbath of rest for you. So again, do not do any work. Don't just relax, rest on that day for Yom Kippur. The Cohen who does this in his father's stead. So this is the descendants of Aaron, the successors, his priesthood line. They're all gonna do the exact same thing through all time. So no matter how far ahead time goes, they're all going to do exactly what Moses said to do. You're going to do that. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So there is your Yom Kippur Torah reading. Now you know what is necessary for Yom Kippur. The question is, how do I deal with this if I don't have a high priest and a Holy of Holies and all this? What do we do? A valid question, my friends, one I don't have a clear answer to. Some will tell you that you should go to temple and pray. Others will tell you that you should sacrifice something like a chicken. I honestly don't know. I'm not a Torah scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the Torah. It says that it must be done this way, so I would go so far as to say that a Kohanim needs to fulfill this process somehow. So how do we go about doing that? I don't know. But it must be done. Otherwise, how do we get atonement? Don't think that God's just going to wave his hand and pretend nothing happened. There is an expectation, so we need to follow it. Now, normally, if you're a regular listener of this show, you know that I don't do the maftir portion, if you even know what that is. But in this case, it seems to be highly relevant, so I will be reading so now. This is chapter 29 of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, verse 7 through 11. And on the 10th day of this 7th month there shall be a holy convocation for you, and you shall afflict your souls. You shall not perform any work. You shall offer up a burnt offering to the Lord for a spirit of satisfaction, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in the first year. They shall all be unblemished. And their meal offering shall be fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 for the bull and 2/10 for the ram, 1/10 for each lamb for the 7 lambs. A young male goat for a sin offering, besides the atonement sin offering and the continual burnt offering, its meal offering, and their libations. Okay, so this is an elaboration, or maybe even awareness. So on the 10th day, 7th month, this is again about Yom Kippur. It doesn't specify what you'll do in terms of being atoned, or your sins being atoned for, but it does say that you have to do this as well. So maybe this is a part of the puzzle. What do we do if there is no Kohanim? Well, then the Kohanim can't fulfill the other part, but we are still expected to offer up these things for a spirit of satisfaction. Now remember, this may be a byproduct of the many extra times God added more commandments based on new additional pacts and deals made with Moses throughout the journey. I can't say for sure. Nevertheless, I wanted to include this part once I saw it because it is quite relevant. Well, that's that. Until next time, this is Shmuel Moshe, hoping that you had an easy fast and a steady Yom Kippur, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, as always, Baruch Hashem.